Alright class, so you're about to get started on your cutting board project. You've shown Mr. Coop your cut list and he's approved it and he said, great, this looks awesome. Here's your piece of wood. And you're going to start with, say you have walnut. If Mr. Coop's given you all your different pieces of wood, you can do the same inspection as I'm going to teach you to do right now. You're going to look to see if there's a straight edge. Now this, as you might be able to see, has a very rough edge on it still. So that is certainly not straight. Okay? This edge has a little better look to it, but it may not be straight. It may have a curve in it. If you press this against the fence and there's no shadow line, you have yourself a straight board. Now this one, as you can maybe see, has a slight shadow line right here. So it's not perfectly straight. It's pretty good, but not perfect. So we're going to start by getting a straight edge. So I'm going to make sure the track is up. Place my material underneath. And I'm going to get rid of that fuzzy side I showed you. And I'm going to make sure I see at least 1/8 of an inch along the track. Lower it down. And readjust if I have to. There we go. We have it in a good spot. And this board's wide enough to where it doesn't rock, so we're okay. If you had a narrow piece, you'd want to shove another board under here, just like this, to keep it from rocking so that it stays nice and flat. We're going to get our fez tool up on the table. I'm going to make sure all my cords are on this side of the yellow. Set up with my saw right at the front. 2 hands on the machine, and here we go. Now that fuzzy edge has gone away, and we have a very nice straight edge on this board. This is now the edge that we will put against the fence. Okay, now that we know we've got our straight edge, we're going to set this to a little bit bigger than the width we want each of our pieces to be. Okay? So let's say I wanted to be at 1.5 inches for all my strips. I'd come over here and set it to 1 9/16 or maybe even a little bigger. Since I have one straight edge already, I'll stick with 1 9/16. Lock it down, it's not moving. Okay? And let's say I need 4 strips of these. Mr. Coop gave me a board that's twice as long as I need, so I will do 2 strips, and then I will go and cut those strips down in half with the crosscut saw. But let's go ahead and watch pushing this through the bandsaw. Now I've got my 2 pieces of walnut. They're at equal widths, okay? But they have those saw curves on them. Let's show you how to take those saw curves off. All right, class. So to get rid of these saw curves, you're going to use the planer. This red dial right here, it has inches on the left and centimeters on the right. We're going to need to raise that up to the point, and we're raising it by using this arm here. We need to raise that up until it says the 1 9/16 that we have this already at. Okay. And 1 9/16 is right before, because we're going this direction, the 1.5. So there we go. Now that I have this set right to my measurement that I think I need, we're going to start by sending these through on one side, and we'll run it through until we find it smooth on one side. Then after we're done with that, we will flip them over and run them through the other side, and we'll keep measuring until we get to that exact number we wanted of 1.5. Here we go. Do please make sure that this blast gate is open so that all the dust actually goes in. Now, as you'll see, if you've planed them correctly, it will be hard to tell when one board starts and the other doesn't, because there's no gaps, and that's what you want. Now we're ready to go cut these to length. Alright class, so I've already cut those walnut pieces, and I've got those dialed in. Now, I wanted to put a Afrormosia small strip in between each one of those. And I want it to be thin, but the problem is this bandsaw doesn't move over that far because this bearing gets in the way. How are we going to do it? Well, here's the solution. What we're going to do first is make sure that this board is parallel, that the measurement is the same all the way through. This one is not. Over here it's 4 1/8, and this is 3 15/16. So that will not work with this trick. What you need to do first is make sure it's parallel. So I'm going to start by setting this up to take off just a little bit, and we're going to get this board parallel. Then I'm going to show you how you can get your small piece. So let me rip this, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, now that we have our parallel piece, what I want to do is mark the amount that I want. So let's say I want to have a 1/4 of an inch piece when I'm done. Like we always do, we're going to make it a little bigger so that we can plane it down and make it fit correct. So I'm going to mark right at the end, and I'm going to mark so that I can see it on this blade 5/16. Okay. This right here is my mark. It's at 5/16 of an inch, and I'm going to line up the blade to be on this side of that mark, so the blade takes away material on this side of the mark, and we get all 5/16 of it left over. Move this fence over. So blade is here, mark is here, so the mark is on this side of the blade, and we are going to lock it down and run that right now. Here we go. Here we go, we've got our thin piece, but now we have bandsaw marks on both sides. Saw curves. We need to get rid of those saw curves. So we're coming over to the planer, and we're going to set it up to get rid of those saw curves now and make it nice and flat. Alright, so I went and did that process to get those thin strips on all 3 of these. And those 2 walnut pieces that you saw me have, I cut those in half now. And you'll notice there's a little extra on these 2 than this one, and that's okay. We're going to clean it all up later. The keys to getting this set up is to have at least one side where everything lines up right like this. I like to choose the side closest to me, it's just easiest to manage. But in so doing, check to make sure that there's good pieces. This has a little chinger out of it and sapwood right there. I'm going to flip that. Also this side still has the paint from the mill yard. So I'm going to put those towards that edge and try and keep this side as clean as possible. Okay? Now you've got all your pieces, and notice this too. These sit taller by about 1/4 of an inch than the walnut. Sometimes the thickness of the materials can be different, and that's okay. We're going to be able to plane that all off. The key thing is to make sure nothing is really off from each other this way. If these pieces were up like this, and these were the opposite way, then there's not many points lining up with one another. You want to keep it as flat as possible and have the bottom equal, even if the top is not. Now the way that we're going to do our glue ups, we're going to use these clamps here, and it's always helpful to have them ready to go at a width that's about what you have. Okay? And remember, and I'm going to do this right now, before you ever glue up, check it and make sure there are no gaps when you dry clamp it. You do a dry fit. So I'm going to take these, try and slide them on to my clamps. I like to have my clamps towards the ends so that if there's a gap in the middle, I can always add another clamp, but I know that my ends are tight. I'm going to line it all up here again. Okay. All my pieces are lined up at this end, and we know that they're going to be sitting flat on these clamps because of gravity. Now I start to spin this clamp to tighten it. Oh, and that's fun. I'm seeing all the gaps go away. There's some gaps here, but I think this clamp will take care of it. This looks very good at this stage. I'd ask for the teacher, say, hey, can you check this out? Does this look good? This is going to be my layout. If the teacher okays it, we're going to be gluing. Before that, though, I want to show you a picture of it so that you can see, yes, it's different lengths, it's different heights, but there are no gaps. Okay, here's a look at my glue up. So you can see the ends are pretty much in line with each other, but you can see the heights are different, right? And that's okay. Like I said, we can plane it off. But if you look down the line there are no gaps at all. All the edges are nice and straight. All the saw curves are gone. And then see at the end, yeah, they're different lengths. But at the end, we can cut that all perfectly square, either using the crosscut saw, or the chop saw, or our crosscut sled on the table saw.